Welcome and Shabbat Shalom to all of you here in the sanctuary. It's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. And Shabbat Shalom to all of you who are watching the live stream at home. I'm Rabbi Matt Berger. I'm pleased to be joined on the bima with our soloist, Allison Rosoff. And down at the piano, Joy Katzen-Guthrie, who's sporting another fine hat on this Shabbat evening. We're going to begin by singing the words of Shir Chadash, just a small portion of Psalm 96, Sing Unto God, All the Earth, a New Song, music by Julie Silver.
To God, and we'll sing along. The earth, a new song unto God. Shiru Adonai, Kol haaretz. Shiru Adonai, Shir Chadash. I will sing unto God a new song.
We'll get in the spirit of lighting the Shabbat candles with Debbie Friedman's Light These Lights.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen.
You'll find the blessing for the Shabbat candles on the screen and on page 2 of your prayer books, Mishkan Tefillah, Dwelling Place of Prayer. Very exciting, a new lighter tonight. Let's see how it works. Let's go with the old standby then.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
Holy One, on this Shabbat we ask for peace in the Ukraine, and we ask you, God, for your shelter of peace to spread throughout the world. Guard all of the families and the soldiers whose lives have been profoundly uprooted due to this war of attrition. May their bodies, their homes, and their lands once again be protected and safe. And let us also do our part to build a more loving, just, supportive, and life-sustaining world speedily in our own days. And let us say, Amen. We'll continue with the traditional Shabbos table song, Shalom Aleichem, peace be to you, Malachim, messengers of the Most High.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Koachem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech Malachei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tzeitzem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei
Our segue to Shema and its blessings may be found on 26, the half or Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadav, Yitkadash Shmei Rabbah, B'yama divrach Yutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayi de kol Beit Yisrael, Bagala, Bagala, uv'yizman kariv, v'yimaru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'olam olam me'yamaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yipa'ar, v'yiroman, v'yinasei, v'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, Shemei dekudesha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, damiram be'ama, v'imaru amen.
Let's rise now, turning to the words of the Baruch Hu, the call to prayer.
Barichu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai.
We're going to continue on page 31 with a prayer for creation, words of Ma'ariv Aravim. Please join me. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, HaMa'ariv Aravim. And on 33, you'll find words of love, Ahavat Olam. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. And we'll sing. Jeff Kleppers, open up our eyes, preparing for Shema.
Open up our eyes, teach us how to live, fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. Open up our eyes, teach us how to live.
Teach us how to live.
Fill our hearts with joy and all the love you have to give. Gather us in peace as you lead us to your name, and we will know that you are one. And we will know that you are one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Feel free to be seated. We're going to continue on page 36 with the words of the Via Hafta. Excuse me for one moment. I just got to turn on one switch, which will definitely help out the side of the sanctuary that I'm walking to, because that one single switch controls half of the speakers in the sanctuary. So now we'll continue with the V'ahavta. Please join me on 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam libanecha, hiribarta bam, vishivtecha bevetecha, uvlechtecha vadere, ushochbecha uvkumecha, ukshartam leot ayadecha, vihayula totafot ein einecha, uchtavtam, Amizot betecha ubisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim leloechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem Meretz Mitzrayim, Liot Lachem Lelohim, Ani Adonai Elohim. I'd like to share the following reading that is not in your prayer book, but it is in honor of Pride Month, and it's found in a beautiful prayer book called Shar Zahav, which literally means the Golden Gate. God did not lead us by the nearer way when Pharaoh let the people go at last, but round about, by way of the wilderness, pillars of fire and cloud marking night and day, to the edge of the flood tide, uncrossable and vast. If God had led us by the near way, we cried, we would not die here. Let Egypt oppress us as it will. Let us return to the past. But we have come out by way of the wilderness, in fear, on faith, free now because we say we are free, no longer the unchosen, the outcast. God did not lead us by the nearer way, but into rising waters, which do not part unless with an outstretched arm we step forward and stand fast. Our words of freedom, mi chamocha, are found right on page 40. Hope you join us. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norati lo Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, norati lo Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We'll continue with a prayer asking for God's Sukkot Shlemecha, sukkah or shelter of peace to be spread over us, our community, and throughout the world. The words of Hashkivenu, arranged by Dan Nichols.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamitenu shomreinu Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamitenu shomreinu l'chaim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamitenu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, from sorrow and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom V'hamitenu shomreinu l'chaim.
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We'll continue now with the words of our tefillah, our standing prayers. I'll ask us to rise as we ask God to open our lips. Prayers are found on page 46 and following on even pages.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi hilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanorah El Elyon Gomel Chazadim Tovim V'chonei Hakol V'zocher Chastei Avot V'imahot U'mevi רבים, סומך נופים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומחיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומינו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יעלוך סלה. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the intermediate benedictions first for the holiness of Shabbat on page 55. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. And our prayer that God's presence will always remain in Zion and Israel along with all of us. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato litzion. And even in a world of challenge, it's so important to offer words of gratitude for the blessings in our lives. Baruch atah Adonai hatov shimcha ulcha na'eh lechodot. And finally, our prayer of shalom, our prayer of peace, is found on 60. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever, for you're the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai amvarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. The meditation song that we will be singing is called Olam, which means world. Rabbi Menachem Creditor, who is a wise rabbi as well as a very good musician, composed this arrangement of just a few words, just 3 words from Psalm 89, verse 3. Olam, world. Chesed, grace or compassion or kindness. Yibaneh, that we will build this together. We're going to start with the Hebrew, and then as you'll see, it goes right to the English and some catchy yai lalais. Then God will build this world from love. Olam chesed yibaneh. Olam chesed yibaneh. We'll now turn our thoughts to our prayer of healing, Misha Be'erach, which you can find right on the screen or on page 253 in your Sidurim, in your prayer books. As we think of the following individuals in our community and beyond, who need strength, who need courage, and ultimately a sense of healing. Tonight, we think of Laura Barnett, George Barnett, Yonatan Reuven Ben Rivka, Charlie Burke, Babs Brown, Manuel Cruz, Eddie Deerfield, Evelyn Edelman, Rob Edelman, Corrine Fairfield, Judith Fairfield, Joan Felser, Brad Fischelo, Harry Fleisch, John Friedman, Denise Freifeld, Mitchell Freifeld, Leah Gottlieb, Nick Martin, Arnold Miller, Melissa Miller, William Miller, Michael Ranzino, Rabbi Avram Reifer, Abby Richmond, Stephanie Ross, Dennis Schulman, Sarah Shagrin, Lori Sheath, Jeff Stark, John Walsh, Ellen Wool, Jeff Wool, and Sharon Worster. Are there any other names that you'd like to add at this time?
George Stark. Misheberach avotenu mikor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
There's a tradition that's been going on for the past 50 years or so in the old city of Jerusalem. It's a mass blessing, but there's nothing Catholic about it. In fact, it's quite Jewish. The event at its peak, would draw close to 10,000 worshipers who gather at the Kotel or Western Wall twice a year on the intermediate days of two festivals, Passover and Sukkot. Usually the crowds are so huge that people spread out from the Western Wall Plaza, which is pretty big in and of itself, into the surrounding areas up in the the Jewish quarter. This year, however, the Passover ceremony actually took place in 2 days to prevent overcrowding, in all likelihood due to the 45 people who were crushed during a religious event at Mount Meron in the north of Israel last year. So what kind of a blessing could draw such a large crowd? A Shehianu, or prayer of gratitude for celebrating the festival? If you guess that, that would be a good guess, but it's not right, because it's actually something else. And this mass blessing can be traced all the way back to biblical times. For it's written in the second book of Chronicles, right at the end of the Hebrew Bible, the priests and the Levites stood up and blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and the prayer came to God's holy abode in heaven. The blessing that we're talking about here is called Birkat Kohanim, also known as the priestly blessing or priestly benediction. You should know that tens of thousands of parents recite this threefold blessing every Friday night to their children, right after the candles are blessed at home. So you don't actually need to be a Levite or a Kohen to bestow it. But for this mass blessing at the Western Wall, that's another story, because technically only descendants of the priests from the tribe of Levi are supposed to offer this blessing to the people. Not that they're checking any ID cards that say Levite at the entrance to the plaza. Now, I, for one, wouldn't qualify for the honor of being crowded in shoulder to shoulder with many thousands of Jewish men, most of them Orthodox, each wrapping a large, usually white and blue tallis draped over their heads. Firstly, because my family lineage doesn't go that way. I'm simply Israel. And secondly, it's a bit too crowded for my personal taste. Nevertheless, the blessing is quite special. For in the entire Torah, the priestly blessing is only one of two prescribed or mandatory blessings. The first we actually recite during every Passover Seder. You might recall the opening words, Arami Oved Ami. My father was a wandering Aramaean. The Haggadah here is speaking of Abraham, the patriarch, who was originally from the area called Aram. Evidently, he was lost, according to one commentary, like a wayward sheep. So he goes to King Avimelech and asks for some directions. As for the priestly blessing, we find it in this week's Torah portion, Naso, which means to lift your head up and be counted as part of the census, the community of the Israelites. From a literary perspective, the priestly blessing is pretty special, and we can see it best by looking at the Hebrew. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha. May the light of God's presence shine upon you. And finally, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's presence shine upon you and grant you peace. At the end of each of these lines, the one receiving the blessing, or if it's to multiple people, the entire congregation, is supposed to respond, Ken Yehi Ratzon, which means may this be God's will or desire. But there are a number of patterns that also exist within the text. For instance, in each of the three lines, the words increase. There are 3, then 5, then 7. The number of consonants increases as well, line by line, from 15 to 20 to 25. And there's more, because even the number of syllables also grows from 12 to 14 and finally to 16. Step by step, this blessing creates a sense of order, a sense of completion, a sense of moving forward to good things. I remember when I first visited the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, there was a glass encase exhibit which showed an excavation of a burial plot from the end of the First Temple period, which places it somewhere between 1000 to 586 before the Common Era. The display included some very nice jewelry, some pottery shards, some glass, among other artifacts. But the highlight was two very small silver amulets bearing the oldest copies of biblical texts known to us today. They're some 500 years older than the Dead Sea Scrolls, which were written by an extreme group of Jews called the Essenes. These silver amulets, the largest of which is probably the size of your thumbnail, includes the Birkat Kohanim, or blessing of the peace, in a script that was used specifically in the 7th century, some 2,600 years ago. The archaeologist who found the plaques, Gabriel Barquet, said these silver sheets were rolled up and most probably worn around the neck of some pious Jew. This is the very same prayer that Ida and I recited to our kids earlier today, and many Jews recite to their kids each Friday night. And the very same prayer as well that rabbis, cantors, soloists, and choirs recite during festival and high holy day services. It's also shared to bless newborn boys or girls at the time of their naming, as well as during B'nai Mitzvah of kids or adults at some point after they read or chant from the Torah scroll. I remember what it felt like to actually see these tiny little silver amulets. It connected me in a very visceral way to the generations of Jews who came before me, people who shared these very same prayers and people who were moved by the very same words, a blessing from God that truly continues to echo through the centuries. As we well know, most everything in life is subject to change. We age and we mature. Customs, they'll come and go. Clothing styles, they'll ebb and flow as well. Even entire cultures have grown and then faded into existence. But there are certain constants in life. All of us want to feel connected, and all of us want to feel loved. All of us, too, want to feel blessed. And this is what the priestly benediction is all about. In fact, it's exactly why an early commentary or midrash asks a deceptively simple question. Why did the Torah start with the Hebrew letter bet rather than aleph, the second letter rather than the first? At first glance, the midrash seems to answer that the letter bet was chosen because it's the first letter of the word bracha, meaning blessing, whereas aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew word arur, which means curse. But the sages who wrote this commentary, called Midrash Tanchuma, where this teaching is found, they added a degree of nuance to the answer, because it says that the letter aleph actually implies a curse, while bet implies a blessing. So perhaps there's more than meets the eye here. Another way to look at it is that the letter aleph represents the numerical value of 1, meaning it stands alone and is therefore isolated, where the letter bet stands for 2, meaning it grows and expands. After all, it's no wonder that the very first mitzvah, or sacred obligation found in Genesis, implies growth. Pru urvu, be fruitful and multiply. In other words, we live in a world that's designed to give and receive blessings. And that every single blade of grass, every single oat or grain of wheat, every single newborn baby needs God's blessing as well as ours in order to grow and fully reach its potential. Right about now, the world is facing a myriad of challenges for a host of reasons. Here in America, many times it seems that hate is being amplified far more than love. At least that's what we hear about in the news. But even as we decry the violence and discord that tarnishes our world, there are also signs of hope, love, and understanding. For instance, last night I opened this newspaper that I get at the end of my driveway in a nice handy little bag called the North Pinellas Beacon. I never really ordered it, but it comes every single week, and right on the cover page I learned that the Dunedin Chamber has organized the city's inaugural LGBTQIA Pride Week celebration, filled with a week of events and activities, from swim parties to movies to golf cart parades. There's really something for everyone, kids or adults alike. It feels good to live in a community that is open and welcoming. To my mind, this is a blessing, and one that goes hand in hand with enduring Jewish values, such as loving one's neighbor as you love yourself. In life, we need to search out and recognize everyday blessings because they have the power to lift our spirits, reawaken our senses, and remind us of life's potential. Now more than ever, we need to find opportunities to be grateful for the good things we experience. Every single blessing extends the boundaries of what is holy and what is sacred. And whether we give or receive the priestly blessing, we need to give thanks for what we have, whether it's our health, our family, our work, our relationships, or simply the sun, surf, and sand right in our backyard. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless us and keep us. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'kunecha. May God's countenance shine upon us. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God grant each of us the blessing of shalom, feeling of completeness and peace in our hearts. Shabbat shalom. We're going to continue our prayers by turning to the words of Aleinu, the adoration, found on page 282. I'll ask all of us to rise. The ark is opened.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כליה הרצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
free to be seated. Let's turn now to words of praise, memory, and remembrance. Kadisha Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish, found on page 294. As we call to mind and to heart families in the period of Shloshim, the first 30 days, mourning their loved ones. As we remember with love, finally, Arlene Sanders, aunt of Steve Lipinski, and May Lipinski, mother of Steve Lipinski. We also mark the yahrzeit anniversary of passing on this Shabbat of the following individuals. We remember David Askin, Jack Barr, Renee Becker, Margaret Berkey, Maurice Biller, Eileen Bolnick, Herbert Brown, Roger Chatham, Albert Frisch, Samuel Goldstein, Richard Grammatica, Albert Granoff, Eloise Hunter, Beverly Lasser, Ida Mandel, Andrew Marcus, Harry Marks, William Packler, William Rosenblatt, Eleanor Rothschild, Barbara Rudolph, Helen Servitar, Nathan Shapiro, James H. Shinberg, Morris Stessel, Rabbi Frank Sondheim, Sarah Tabb, Charles Tobin, Milton Weinkrantz, Isabel Werboff, and the Hebrew yahrzeit of Andrew Berger. Are there any other names to add for yahrzeit at this time? We say, Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of all of these good people continue to be a blessing in their loved ones' lives as we rise to offer the words of Kaddish praise together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Bialma divrach irutei v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon of yomechon of chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'agalav v'izman kariv imru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'alam ulamei al-maya, yitbarach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudashah b'richu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran b'yalma v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Osei shalom b'mramav, kuya sei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the one who causes peace in the heavens cause peace to descend on us, Israel, and throughout the world as we say, amen.
V'imru, 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 amen. V'imru, 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 amen.
Feel free to be seated. We'll continue with the Shabbat Kiddush, which you can find right on the screens, also on page 5 in the prayer books. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratza banu, v'shabbat kodsho, v'yava uvratzon inchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom techilah, lemikra kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol came to life. And please join us in the Motzi, blessing over the bread. Motzi lechem min haaretz, we give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Say b'te'avon. It's the summertime, so there are a little less announcements or hodaot than usual. Of course, many thanks to Allison and Joy for their beautiful music, along with our tech crew, which is a trifecta today, Nicole and Mike Skalka, and Barbara Ginnemer on her way to becoming part of the tech crew. Next Friday, a very exciting service, June 17th. It will feature a full band. It's our Shabbat live service, which will also honor Jack Lawrence's bar mitzvah, which will take place next Saturday. So please join us for that. No particular theme for that one, except for awesome Shabbat music. Our annual meeting will take place at the end of the month, Friday, June 24th, beginning at 5:45 p.m. You can come in and schmooze a little bit. The meeting will start at 6 and the dinner at 6:30. And you can be here in person. You could also join the live stream and vote that way as well. Following the service, we invite one and all to a Oneg Shabbat right next door in the social hall. And for our final song or prayer, the words of Yehiyu L'Ratzon, may the words of our mouth and the meditation of our heart be acceptable to you, God, our rock and our Redeemer. This version arranged by Josh Nelson. Yehiyu L'Ratzon, Imrefi, Egyon Yivi Lefanecha. Yehiyu L'Ratzon, Imrefi, Egyon Yivi Lefanecha. Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi, Vegoali. Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi, Vegoali. Yehiyu L'Ratzon, Imrefi, Egyon Yivi Lefanecha. Yehiyu L'Ratzon, Imrefi, Egyon Yivi Lefanecha. Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi, Vegoali. Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi, Adonai Turi, Vegoali. And we'll conclude with our prayer for health that you'll find right on the screen before you. Please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher shanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al shmirat hanefesh, for the mitzvah and sacred obligation to protect life. I'd like to wish all of you Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us via live stream as well. Enjoy your weekend.